mute with my volume being on. There we go. Moderating today is my son Edwin. He is over in the side. You can't see him. What?
Said hi.
Oh, he said hi. He said hi. I am sorry for the improper correction of the camera. I don't know what happened. Last month I didn't seem to have a problem with getting that set up in the right way, and I'm sure I'm going to hear about it from my daughter later because she always says that I hold the camera in the wrong direction, but actually it's not my fault this time. It had something to do with the setup when I originally set up the scheduled live, so I apologize to everybody for not being this way and for being this way, and I hope that it's okay for everybody. We have an interesting live today. It's gonna kind of go the same way as it did last month. I had some questions and answers that I had asked people for and that I had pulled off of the internet from Facebook groups that I belong to, and we're gonna continue that this time. Last time Livia was moderating for me and people were asking questions in the chat, and what would happen is I'd be talking about the questions and answers that I have, and then it would stimulate a question on somebody, and somebody would ask a question, and then we would move on from there, and then I just return back to the questions that I have, and then if you have a question you can ask the question again and just keep going with that. If you're not live with us and you're watching this after the fact, hopefully that you have the time to sit and watch and hopefully get some questions answered that you didn't know you had. It's always, you don't know what you don't know. So these are the kinds of videos that you watch to find those things out. The other thing that I wanted to let you know was what was the other thing I wanted people to know? The other thing I wanted people to know was, and I completely forget. This is what happens when you begin to get older. You forget a lot of things. No, I actually wanted to tell you something, and I guess I'm going to have to wait till that pops up in my head again later. Oh, I know what it was. Anybody who is watching after the fact and you have some questions that you'd like to ask in my next live, please put the question in the comments below. If you are one of the 12 people, 13 people that we have on with us at this moment, and you have a question, please put it in the chat. If you come off this call later and you think, oh, I should have asked that question, kind of like I just forgot what I was going to say, maybe you could have put it in the comments as well. And that always, those comments and the likes always help get me onto the algorithm, which gets me pushed out to more people on YouTube, which gets more people, gives more people the ability to click and see what I have to offer when it comes to all of my videos. So we are up to 7,180 subscribers on the channel, which is a enormous number of people considering where I thought we would be. I totally thought that I would be one of those people who just put up some videos and 20 people would watch, and that is because the whole purpose of this channel last October was to inform my students. We went into lockdown and we were learning from home, and my fashion students, I had given them packages and sewing machines and fabric and everything they needed to learn at home, and that all went to their houses, and then I got to do 40 minutes a day with them, and that was it, on the MS Teams, and it really wasn't enough to get them doing what they needed to for sewing. So I created those videos in the very beginning that were meant for my students to help get them where they needed to go. And it was kind of a self-paced beginner's moment for them. And that's how we did it. And then they would come into the meetings, and if they had questions, they would just say, hey, miss, how do I do this? And then they'd turn on their camera facing their machine and I'd show them how to do it. So I was very surprised when more people than just those 24 students started to watch the videos. So very interested to kind of see where it can go. So the more likes that we have, the better. I'm going to say hi, Terry. Terry's out in California. She enjoyed part number 1, and she's here to see what I have to offer for part number 2. Susan's here. Hi, Susan. Thanks for coming again. I appreciate it. Oh, hi, Nicole. We always need something that is calming in our lives. If this is it for you, I am so glad. Gwen is here. She says hi, and Mary is here. Mary wants to know the easiest way to cut fabric straight. Well, Mary, there are a few different ways that you can do that. The first thing that you can do is, if you're going to be using scissors, is to use a straight rule and use chalk or soap to draw your line, and then just doing no more than 2 layers at a time. Cut with your scissors, nice and easy. Resting your scissors on the counter or table that you're using will help kind of steady your hand. That's a good way to do it. Another great way to do straight lines is to use a rotary cutter. And with the rotary cutter, I have to say the best thing and the best way to not have your fabric move is, first you'd have your cutting mat down. I really could show you this, but I don't know how to demonstrate at the same time. It's unlike school. I have such a small space. But you put your cutting mat down first, you put your fabric on top of your cutting mat, then you take your great big ruler that is see-through and you lay it down on top right to where you want to cut. I use clamps. I have these clamps that you buy at the dollar store. They're up in the corner. I don't know if you can kind of see them there. They're pink. Hardware clamps, that's all it is. And you clamp down the ruler onto the fabric, the ruler and the cutting board, and then nothing moves. And then you just like cutting a pizza, you just roll that sucker right across the whole thing, and you have yourself a straight line. That is probably when I want to go fast and straight and accurate, that is the one that I like to use the most. But I teach my students to trace out the pattern onto their fabric. I teach them to use soap, because soap is economical, because it's just the ends of the soap from the shower, and then you're cutting using your scissors that way. We have lots of things going on.
Yeah.
What's going on?
So, continuing on what Marianne said.
Yep.
She said, hi, the bias confuses me. I typically use a rotary cutter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so if you're cutting on the bias, that means that you have the selvage edge of your fabric. The selvage edge is the edge of the fabric that goes into, let's see if I can grab a piece of fabric here. Oi, I'm sorry. Okay, so your selvage edge is the edge of the fabric that goes into the machine when they're weaving it. It is the true edge. It's not the edge that you cut. So you have a selvage edge on this side, and then you would have a selvage edge on this side. Those are true straight edges. So those edges would be where you always want to cut from. Now, if you're going to cut on the bias, Mary, you're going to open up your fabric and you're going to cut, so I'll just show you, and you're going to cut on that angle that goes all the way across. So the bias is always opposite of the selvage. So it goes this way. Okay. Mary also said something else, though, that she typically uses a rotary cutter. Yeah, she probably would like that one. Okay, I have, let's see, the other Mary, Mary Miller. She says hi, and Stacy Baker says hi, and Angela has a question. Eddie, what's the question?
Hey Amy, I was wondering, can you redo the video about how to thread a machine and about the bottom? The video you have, in the video you have, some of the shots were out of screen.
Okay, I'm going to apologize right now, Angela, and to anybody else that watched any of those videos at the very beginning. I didn't really know what I was doing. Some of those videos I also took at school, so I just used my iPhone and propped it up beside the sewing machine. I didn't have a tripod and stuff like I have now. So my videos, I hope, are much better and fewer things come out of the screen. But tell me, Angela, are you looking for how to thread a bobbin that drops from the top, or are you looking for one that loads from the front? So if you can tell me that, but maybe I should just do a video on loading both kinds, and I will put that on my list. So I actually have myself, and I'm going to show you guys today. Hey, okay. I'm going to show you my notebook. So this is my sassy book because I'm sassy. This is my YouTube video idea book. And so what I do is I have all of these ideas, and it goes on and on for pages. So I'm going to add Angela's idea to there. That's a really good quick video for me. Angela, YouTube now has these YouTube shorts where the videos are less than a minute. So I'll probably just make a couple short videos, and then that'll go up and you'll be able to see it no problemo. And then I'll make sure everything stays in the screen so that you can see it. But I can't find a pen. I know where there's one, but I gotta go back there again. So hold on one second, I gotta get a pen. What did I do with my pens? Of course, I got a ton of pens ready today, and then I forgot to leave one out. So I'm just gonna write Angela bobbins ×2 YouTube shorts. There you go, Angela. I will do that for you as soon as I can, probably in the next day or two. Thank you so much. What else do we have, Edwin?
Someone says, hello from Arizona. Thanks for the live broadcast. Just bought a sewing machine, newbie. Want to begin making own tops for favorite tops I have as a pattern, like cotton. Any suggestions?
Yes. So this is, I'm going to call you 3K because I don't want to mispronounce your YouTube handle. But if you're looking to make a shirt from favorite shirts that you already have, I actually have a video on that. Now, on the video that I made, I took one of my favorite shirts and I show you how to copy that favorite shirt. One mistake that I made, which was a big mistake, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I totally forgot. When you're doing, when you're making a pattern from something that you own, always make sure that you give yourself a double seam allowance on the outside of the garment. Because what I did is I didn't, and I just traced out the t-shirt that I love, and I ended up having to make the t-shirt for my daughter because she's much tinier than me. So she loves it, it's great. But always remember that when you are using a garment that you own and that you love, by all means, you just take it, turn it, lay it down the way I did in the video, but you always want to make sure that you give yourself a double seam allowance. So if you usually like 1/4 of an inch or a 1/2 inch seam allowance, I would double that just to make sure that you give yourself enough space for it to be comfortable. Okay. Nicole says sharp tools. Absolutely. The best way to cut is with sharp tools. Now, that reminds me, there are ways to sharpen your tools without having to go to the professionals. So it might be a good idea for you guys to know these 3 quick tips. The very first quick tip is you can sharpen your pins. A lot of people don't know this. And so when you start to use your pins and your pins are dull and you're trying to push it through and it's not going, there's a way to sharpen them. And that is you make yourself a pin cushion, and inside that pin cushion you put steel wool. And then every single time that you put your pin in the pin cushion, you're actually hitting the steel wool and sharpening that pin. Now, scissors. The best way to sharpen your scissors, believe it or not, if you don't want to send them off to the sewing machine place or to the knife guy to get sharpened, is to use tinfoil. You want to sharpen by cutting tinfoil. So I often will take some tinfoil, fold it in half again, and chop, 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 make these nice long chops. And it can take off any burrs that you need to take off. The other thing is that there are scissor sharpeners that you can buy at hardware stores. I'm not keen on those. I find that I can't run it smoothly enough. But there are in stores, believe it or not, sports stores sell these burr removers. They're just these little, they're just like a plastic stick, and on the end is two sharp stones, and you run your figure skate or your hockey skate through it, and it removes the burr from the skate. Same thing could happen for scissors. So make sure you're keeping everything nice and sharp. Your rotary, not, I'm forgetting the name. Look at me and my forgetfulness tonight. The rotary blade can also be sharpened using tin foil, but they can easily be replaced. Now, rotary blades get expensive, so you want to make sure you find a place in your area that's cheap enough that you can use it. I know here in Canada, places like Princess Auto, other auto shops, leather workplaces, some dollar stores all carry the rotary blades. I know that in some states in the United States, Massachusetts and Michigan, you have places like Harbor Freight or other automobile stores that will also have rotary blades, and they might have them pretty cheap. So that's an option for that. But make sure you keep them nice and sharp. Just like your needles. You need your needles nice and sharp too. So where are we? Stacy Baker. She uses exercise weights to hold her ruler down. Yep, that's great. Anything that is heavy enough to keep it down and doesn't obstruct you from cutting is a great thing. That's why those clamps are so easy, because they just clamp right on. Giant binder clips also work for that too, because you can clip multiple things in on your tabletop, so that works as well. Where are we, Edwin?
We are at Terry. I am in need of a lot of lights as I sew. What are your thoughts on the lights that I can attach to your machine with a magnet? I'm afraid my magnet might mess up the electronics in my machine.
Okay, well, Terry, there is quite the debate about magnetics around electronic machines. I do know for a fact that older electronic machines did go faulty with any kind of magnet around the machine. But I have to tell you, the machine that you see right there, that is my Memory Craft 6700. It's an older machine. I think it's about 6 years old, 7 years old, and it has an electronics panel, and it has a motherboard, and it always has this little magnetic dish sitting beside it, and I have never had a problem. Now, is that magnet on the machine? Nope, it's not. I do have a magnetic, let me show you. I do have a magnetic seam allowance guide that I do use on that machine, but I don't leave it on that machine. I do take it off when it's not in use. So I cannot promise you magnets won't mess up the electronic machine, but I do know for a fact that you can get clip-on lights that are not magnetic that you can clip onto the back of the machine, or you can get the magnetic ones, and you can use a double-sided hardware tape, and you can use the tape on the side of the machine to hold your light so that your light comes down. Now, there are some more expensive LED lights that are meant for sewing machines that have like this little arm that gets all bendy and you can put it all the way around. Those work too. That great big Swedish store that we all know about, they have some really great options with bendy arms and things like that that are meant to attach to tables. So they have the great big mouths that you could attach to your sewing table and then use the bendy arm to get it around to your machine. I hope that helps. Next.
Angela has a question. Oh, another question. Is it easy to make a V-neck t-shirt out of a man's t-shirt, or not worth it?
Okay. So if a men's t-shirt is It's the best way to say this. If you have your hand, okay, my son is 6'5". I'm only 6 foot. So if I wanted to make a t-shirt for myself from his shirt, I could do that. I can make it small enough to fit me. Now, if that neck on that man's t-shirt is a crew neck, then it will have enough space that I could take it down and I could make it into a V. But the problem with that is that you still need to have enough fabric that you could do a facing. So what happens is, excuse me, what happens when you sew, there are two ways to kind of finish a neckline. Actually, three ways to kind of finish a t-shirt neckline. The first one is that you would use a bias tape. So let me show you here. I have a roll of pre-made bias tape. This is t-shirt material. Let's see if I can find the edge to show you. Okay, so if you can have a stripe of t-shirt material and you're able to sew it onto your V here, then you flip it to the inside of the shirt. I'm doing this by looking at the camera and I probably shouldn't. So it would turn it, once you've sewn that on, you want to turn it under like that, and then you would top stitch, and then that would act as a facing. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it would be to apply it like a bias tape, so that you're actually applying it from the inside. You sew along here first, and then you flip it down, and then you do your top stitch using a double needle or a cover stitch machine there. So as long as that t-shirt has enough length that from the bottom of that t-shirt, or even from, if you're going to take it in from the side, that you have enough of this to go all the way around that V-neck, the length of that V-neck. I hope that makes sense. It's really hard to like just explain using words, so I'm sorry. Let's see. What else have we got? Angela, oh, she said that her bobbin loads from the side, so I'm assuming that means front. Nicole, okay. For pins, the strawberry or pepper on the tomato pin cushion is full of emery dust and will clean and sharpen your pins. So if you don't want to make your own pin cushion, you can get yourself one of the tomatoes or strawberries, and then you have the little tiny part. So often you get your hands on one of those little tomatoes, one of those tomato pin cushions, and you're like, what's that little thing at the end? And it's a little strawberry that's hanging off the tomato, and everybody's like, well, what's that for? If you take your pin and you puncture that little strawberry a bunch of times, it's full of emery dust, like an emery board, and it will sharpen those. Thanks, Nicole. I totally forgot about that. That's great. Let's see. Susan.
Susan says, is it true that you shouldn't sharpen your sewing machine and hand sewing needles?
That is true. That is true. The thing with sewing machine needles, and hand needles. Okay, I'm going to show you an example of what happens if you what can happen if you sharpen a hand needle. So I don't know. Let's see. This is a little hand needle, and it broke. It broke right where there was a burr, and I took my emery board. So I keep an emery board right handy here. And I took my emery board and I felt that burr, and I just went across it like this a couple times until that burr was gone. And then I was sewing, hand sewing a hem, and that broke right in half. Now, I mean, it's not very dangerous to have a hand needle break on you, But if you're using a sewing machine needle that you removed a burr on, or that you used something to sharpen with, and it breaks, and it breaks with trajectory, that's not good. We all know that, a broken sewing machine needle often doesn't fly, right? They usually just break and they're stuck in something, and we change them out. But you never know how it's going to break if you've tampered with it. So you want to be really careful. So I always tell people, don't tamper with those ones. It's far more important that those machine needles are fresh and clean from a new pack. The only time I use used needles, sewing machine needles, is when my students are learning. So when my students first come to class and they're learning how to sew, I put old needles into the machines, and then I have them, I have these 8.5 by 11 sheets, and on them I have straight lines, and then I have another one with wavy lines, and I have another one with a circle, and a circle inside of that, and a circle inside of that, and then I have another one with like a square that goes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, like a maze. And I have the kids use those to follow so that they can learn how to get the needle to stay on that line. It also helps them with pedal control, because you can see when you hold it up to the light, you can see where they got the zoomies. And I call it the zoomies because it's when they put pressure on their pedal and they went vroom, vroom. And so I teach them that slow and steady wins the race, that they should always go slowly, and that they really want to bump, 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 bump rhythm when they get started. And you can really see the difference on that piece of paper. And again, with an old needle, not a needle that they're going to use later. And that's kind of the first step. So we do get to know machines, and then from there we learn how to how to follow the lines and pedal control. And that's what I use the old needles for. Yep, Susan says LED strip lights that stick to the underside of your machine are fantastic. That is new technology in the last 5 years. I have a really bright room in the school, so I don't have to have LED machines there. My sewing room here, the lighting is pretty terrible. But now that I'm doing YouTube videos and I have lighting, I just turn the YouTube lighting on when I'm sewing, and there's no problem. So it works really well. Let's see. But yes, Susan's right that you can get them actually quite cheap at your local hardware store. I always try to stay away from Amazon if I can, but Amazon also sells them. You pretty much can buy them anywhere now. It used to be that you could hardly find them, but now you can find them all over the place. The kids are liking LED lights for their bedrooms too, especially the ones that change color. They have, believe it or not, they have them where they change color to music. So if the kids are playing music in their room, the lights change. It's kind of like your own version of disco, I guess. That kind of ages me. Anyway. All right. Let's say, when you buy material to make a top, how much extra material should be bought beyond what the pattern is called for? Okay, so this is different for if you have pattern. If it has a print or a pattern on the fabric, I always say about half a meter extra. If it is a solid, then you could probably go with 1/4. If you're a newbie and you're learning, it's probably best to go with an extra half. Okay. The reason why, if it has a print, a pattern, a plaid, a check, or anything, the reason why you need to have extra is because, and this is something that a lot of beginners don't realize, is that you really want to make sure that you are meeting up your prints at your seams. Because if you're making yourself a pair of pants, I mean, if they're pajama pants and you don't care, then it doesn't really matter. But if you care and you want them to look like they were store made, but of course they were made by you, then you want to match up when you're cutting your plaids or your stripes or your pattern the best that you can. And that's why a lot of fabric companies repeat the pattern every quarter or every half, so that you can easily meet up that from seam to seam, so that you have a continuous pattern. So, okay. What else? Do we have anything else?
Nope, that's all for right now.
Angela said Dollarama has them. Angela, what does Dollarama have? I don't know what we were talking about that you said Dollarama has.
I think she's referring to the LED lights.
Oh, Dollarama has the LED lights. If you are in Canada, your Dollarama store is the place to go. The Dollar Tree sometimes has them too, so that's a good one. If you are elsewhere in the world, if you are a friend in the UK or in Australia, I know that the UK does have a pound shop where everything's a pound. You should look there. In Australia, I'm not sure what you have in regards to dollar stores, but you could try your local hardware. And I know in the States, you guys have some kind of dollar store or discount store. You could always try there. Okay, my friends, LED lights. You were right, Edwin. Good job.
I was right.
He's doing a good job moderating. Okay, so let's see. I got no more questions from you guys. So let's see what I have in from my questions from last time. Let's talk a little bit about patterns and cutting out a pattern and making sure that you understand what it is that you need to follow. So on a pattern, I guess the first thing I'll tell you is when my students are using a pattern, the first thing I have them do is I have them trace the pattern. The reason is because we have all of our patterns, almost all of our patterns have come from donations. So because our budget is quite small, I run a lot of the program, probably 85% of my stuff that I would normally buy comes from donations. So that includes the hundreds of patterns that I have. But the reason why we still have hundreds of patterns is because I have the kids use tracing paper. When we first started the program 5 years ago, I had them using like cheap dollar store tissue paper, and that just didn't really work. And then from there, I went to buying artistic vellum, like actual tracing paper from the artist supply. And it wasn't cheap, but it was worth it. And since I was getting so many of my other things I need for the program from donations, I actually had a little bit of money, so I spent it on that tracing paper. And now I have found the rolls of medical paper that the doctors pull and put on the bed, and then when you leave they rip it and they throw it away, and then they pull it for new for the next person. I found that on the internet, and I think I got like probably it was about 12 or 18 rolls, and there's a lot on it, and I think I paid about $75. I'm going to apologize. The dog's going to bark because two of my children are about to come in the door, so she gets very excited. And so I have the kids trace their patterns. Now, if the pattern that they want is not in their size, I have them, believe it or not, use that pattern, and they make it bigger by taping pencils together. So if these are 2 pencils, I have them tape it together. That's one size. And then if it's 2 sizes they want to go, I have them tape 3 pencils together. And so this pencil here and this pencil here would be deeper, and one would follow the pattern and trace it, and this would be the one that's bigger that they would cut out. So I have them do that. The next thing that I have them do, they have to take their measurements. Their measurements are extremely important. And a lot of people don't realize that when you buy a pattern, you don't buy it with your ready-to-wear size. You have to buy your pattern with your measurement size. So you flip if you look at the back of your pattern envelope, it gives you bust size, chest size, waist size, hip size. And you want to go across on the chart and you want to find the size that you should have. And that's the size you should buy. And the big four pattern companies, they actually have it so that like they do small, medium as one pattern and large, extra large is another, and then they have the plus sizes. So if someone like me who wants all the sizes, they're making me buy 3 different patterns. But when it comes to the independent pattern companies, all the new ones that are out there, so many of them have a multitude of sizes. So I know Berta has a multitude of sizes. I know that Jali out of Quebec, they have a multitude of sizes. I love Jali patterns because I can make something for a child and I can make something for myself, and that comes, or even for my giant son, and that comes from the same one, same pattern. So it's really important that you understand your measurements and that you understand that it's not the same ready-to-wear size as pattern size. So what's happened in retail is that retail kind of, in the creation of fast fashion, they actually have decreased the ready-to-wear sizes to kind of make us, the consumer, feel better. So back in the day of Marilyn Monroe, she used to, she was super tiny. She was like 34, 22, 34 were her measurements. And she fit in what was then a size 12, 14. Well, those measurements in today's standards would put her in a size 2 in ready to wear. So that's the difference of all of those years, in the fact that they wanted to make us, the consumer, feel better about ourselves because our society was getting larger. So they gave us what's called vanity sizing. But the pattern companies didn't do that. They kept their sizing exactly the way that they used to be. So you have to, it's super important. If you're new to sewing and you don't know this, it's important that you know your measurements and you can look at the back of the pattern before you leave the store so you're not buying the wrong one. Okay?
Nicole says, what was your first ever sewing project?
So my mom taught me how to sew when I was 10. My mom was one of those types of people. Well, my mom was part of 4-H, and she was a small town girl, and they didn't have a lot of money, and she was the eldest daughter, and she taught herself how to sew so that she could take her clothes and turn them into clothes for her younger siblings. And in that way, it was reasonable for them to do so. And so she's always kind of worked off book. She's never really been a pattern kind of person. She's always designed her own stuff. She's always just understood stuff. So it was really interesting to learn from her. So in the beginning, I really didn't use patterns either. So in those ages from 10 to 12, when I was in grade 7, I took middle school. Back then we had to take a shop and we had to take a home ec class. So it was important at that point that I learned how to use a pattern. So my very first sewing project with my mom was a pair of shorts, and she kind of just told me, this is how it works. This part of the pattern has to be a deeper curve because that's where your bum is, and in the front is a more shallow curve because we don't have as much in the front to fill out the pants. So she kind of showed me how to do things that way. And then when I went into home ec in grade 7, I did some like pot holders, and I think I made a sweatshirt and things like that. And then it wasn't until I got into high school that my mom kind of I was a figure skater, and my mom didn't want to make my costumes anymore, so she kind of taught me how to work with the spandex lycra and the more difficult things, and and I just kind of sewed from there, and lots of sequin sewing, things like that. That was before the rhinestones. We had to put each sequence on the dresses. But anyway, so go ahead.
Frank said, "Hello. May you please kindly plan how to film, to thread and operate your industrial sewing machine."
All right.
Thank you very much.
So Frank is talking about Daisy. So Daisy's over here behind me. Daisy is, if you haven't already seen her before, she is a cylindrical industrial machine, cylindrical walking foot sewing machine, which means she doesn't have a platform base. She has a little circle at the end, and this allows me a lot of movement if I'm making purses, bags, shoes, things like that. So I am going to add that to my list, Frank. And you want to learn how to thread her. So we want to learn how to thread Daisy and operate her. Sure, I could make something small. Okay, Frank, you are on the list. Thank you very much for your suggestion. I appreciate it. Okay, and the next one, Edwin.
This cipher says, "What is your favorite color combinations for fashion?"
My favorite color combos for fashion. Well, I am one of those people who firmly believes in the color black. Well, the non-color black, I suppose. But I really enjoy, when it comes to my home, I really like to coordinate colors like red and orange with blacks and grays. I'm starting to switch over right now to grays and blues, so it's kind of fun. But when it comes to me dressing, I am very dull. I like the blacks, I like the navies, I like the khakis. But my very favorite color is the bright purple. And I don't wear it very often, but I do love it. So thank you, New Cipher, for that question. I appreciate it. Angela says patterns scare her. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the patterns. Let's see if we can remember where I was. So we talked about tracing the patterns. We talked about measuring yourself for patterns. Patterns actually aren't as hard as they seem to be. Really, it's just doing it once or twice. Now, I have another sewing teacher on YouTube. She's out of British Columbia. Her name is Catherine Sews. And Catherine has a really fantastic video on reading a pattern that she has put on her YouTube channel for her students. And I haven't done that video yet. I've just been sending my students over to her to watch it. So if you are interested in learning on really how to do the pattern before I do that video, you can, go over to Catherine Sews and check that video out on how to use that pattern. But let's talk a little bit more about patterns. There are notches. So when you're tracing out your pattern, you'll see these little notches. And the notches that are triangular, you'll see that there's a single triangle, and then you go further, and then there's like a double triangle, and then you go further, and then maybe you'll see a triple triangle in a row. It's important for you to trace those out and to mark them on the fabric when you're cutting it. And the reason that so you're not going to cut those triangles out. Don't cut them. You want to cut the pattern, and you want to draw them on with your chalk or your soap or whatever. And the reason why those are important is because when you are putting two pieces together that belong together, say we have a triangle here and a triangle here, single triangles, you're going to meet those triangles up together, and then you're going to sew, or you're going to pin, and then you're going to sew. And then that's going to keep your garment together in the place it should be. And then anywhere there's a double triangle, that single triangle goes together, that double triangle goes together. And if you have a triple triangle, you're gonna put that triple triangle together, and you're gonna pin that down, and then you're gonna sew it. And that's how you know that you've got everything in the right place, because those notches tell you that everything's in the right place. Now, another thing you should know about patterns. When you trace out your patterns, the information in the middle is important. So if it says cut to on fold, or it says cut to of interfacing, cut to of fabric, cut to of contrasting fabric, That means that you're cutting 2 of those out of interfacing. That's a whole nother subject if you don't know interfacing. That means you're going to cut 2 out of the main fabric, and you're going to cut 2 out of your contrasting color fabric or your lining. And it's important that you have all that information written down. So make sure you write that down. The other thing that's important to write down is if it has a line and it says shorten here or lengthen here. You want to make that line, and you want to write what it says on your pattern. And the reason is, if you're tall like me, or you have someone in your life who's tall like my son, or if you have someone in your life who's got shorter legs, that allows you to add length or make it shorter, but you only do it where the company tells you to do it, right? You don't want to make a pair of pants and then just chop off the end, because then they're too wide. But if you chop it where they tell you to chop it, which is usually at the thigh, then you are just removing extra material, and the pant still keeps the line that the company intended it to have. Okay, so that's important also. What else can I tell you that's important? Let's see. Oh, I know. When it says cut 2, it doesn't mean open your fabric and cut one and then cut another one. You don't want to do that. That's like, no thanks. That's a big mistake, actually. You don't want to do that, because you'll end up with 2 probably of the same side. So if, say you're making a pair of pants, if you cut 2 and you've opened up the fabric and you lay it down and then you lay it down again, then you're going to cut 2 of the right side, probably. But what we do is, the reason that fabric comes laid down and folded is because then we can lay down our piece on top of the folded fabric, trace it out, cut it out, and when we cut it out and we open it, we have a left side with the good side up, and we have the right side with the good side up. So then we know we have both sides of the fabric, and that's why we cut it while it's still folded over. Now, if it says cut on fold, then you always have to make sure that it'll have an arrow and it'll say cut on fold in the picture. And you want to make sure that you put that edge right up against the folded edge, and you cut it there. And what that does, it'll say cut 1 on fold is what it'll say. And then when you open up that garment after you've cut it, there's no place to do a seam, and that's good, because usually it would be like a front of a shirt. This would have been cut on a fold. And believe it or not, let's see. Yep, this shirt is all one in the back too. So the front and the back would have been cut on a fold. And that's so that I don't have a seam down my front. I don't have a seam where they don't intend it, which is down the back. So that's important to know also. That's a tip to know. We have more questions?
Yeah, do you find if you give your sewing machine a name, they sew better? Just kidding. How did Daisy get her name?
Okay, Daisy, believe it or not, is the only one who has a name. I don't know why. The others don't have a name. They're just the machines, I suppose. If you watched my video on all of my machines, then you would have seen I actually have too many machines. My insurance company's already told me if something happens, they're not replacing them all. So it costs too much money. But Daisy, she just she was substantial. She was important. She was hard to get into the house because she's heavy as heck. And so I just felt like, an immediate bond with her because it was hard work to get her here. So she just kind of felt like a daisy, and I don't even know why. I don't even know. When I tend to name things, I tend to name things with male names too. It was really weird. So I felt like she just kind of always needed to be Daisy. That she was Daisy. If I was going to name her, she was Daisy. So she is Daisy, and all the rest of the machines, they don't have names. Don't tell them. They might get upset. Okay. Angela, could you make a video on how to follow a pattern maybe as a series to help out with the newbies. Sure, I am pretty sure I have that down in my list, Angela, but I'm going to put that down again. And I'm going to say that you requested that, and I'm going to make sure that all of the viewers know that Angela requested it. And we're going to do a series on reading patterns. And probably what I'll do, Angela, is I'll probably do like a basic top, a basic skirt, basic pant. That's probably the easiest way to do it. When you become an advanced sewist, and if you're making garments, like you can be an advanced bag maker and not be somebody who does garments. You can be a quilter and be like, I'm not touching a bag, right? Like it really depends on kind of where you are in your practice as to like where your expertise lies. And it's so funny because I'll get people who are like, you know, they make these gorgeous purses and bags and they're like, but I'm afraid of a t-shirt. And I'm like, it's all the same. It's like riding a 3-speed bike versus riding a 10-speed bike. Or riding a road bike versus riding a mountain bike. Like they're the same. There's not a whole lot of difference, right? It's not like driving a manual car and an automatic car. Like it's not like that at all. There's not that much of a learning curve. So you want to make sure that you don't lose your confidence. It's okay to try. Like just try, have fun. So yeah. Angela, I will totally do that, and we'll figure out a way to make that happen quickly. I'll try. It's really, you know, I try to put a video out every week. Since October, I've only had 2 weeks where I've told you I've just been too busy. One was at the end of the school year, and one is I'm doing renovations right now, so last week. So it is hard sometimes to think about putting a video, more than one video out in a week. So I'll do my best, I promise. When I get back to school, I'll have my lunch hours. I'll just have to make sure I have a tripod at work. And my studio at school is, school. It's not as pretty as this. Although this gets, pretty busy because there's so much stuff in here. But okay. What do we got?
3K says, what determines a single versus a triple triangle on a pattern?
Okay, so on the pattern, the notches, it's going to depend on the company, but some companies will do a square, some companies will have circles where you meet up the circles, some companies will be a triangle. Now, if you already have a place where they want you to meet up the two pieces and you already have a triangle, then the next place they'll put 2 triangles. And then the next place they'll put 3. So they're only adding so that you're not taking this leg single triangle and this arm single triangle and putting those 2 together. They're going to keep multiples so that you know that the only place a single triangle meets is with another single triangle. It's just what makes it work, makes it easier. Okay? All right. 3K says that she's new to the channel. She or he, sorry, that's a bad assumption. I shouldn't assume that. 3K says that they are new to the channel and they plan on watching all of the videos and they enjoy what they are learning here. Thank you. I so appreciate that. Yeah, I have ADHD and I tend to kind of be flighty in real world. My attention doesn't stay any place for very long, which can make it quite entertaining. I think we tend to edit out some of the really bad stuff. These are the moments when I'm on with you guys live that those things are going to show up. But in reality, my thought kind of always is jumping around too. So I don't really have like a plan. I should like teach like beginner this all the way to the end of the beginner that, and then start advanced this to the advanced that and kind of progress people. But unfortunately, that's not the way my brain works. I kind of go, hey, I want to do this week. Hey, I want to do this week. And it's summer. Let's do alterations for summer stuff. Let's make swimwear. Let's do this dog thing. Let's make a dog. So like, I'm kind of all over the place. So I apologize that my videos are kind of all over the place too. And I just feel like I'm full of so much information and I just want to share it to everybody, but that I just don't have any order to it. That's why this book is so important, because there are all of these ideas. And probably if I just followed the list, it would probably make more sense than, like, hey, what am I doing this week? So I apologize, 3K. It is a little bit messy out there in my playlists, but I have tried to organize them in the playlist. So if you're looking for beginners or fun DIY or about the sewing machines or questions and answers and things like that, then you'll see that I've tried to order them a little bit that way. I do like a really good, I do love thrift flips. Like I keep mentioning, it's so important to me to keep things out of landfill. So that is a really big thing on this channel, and I will continue with that also. So thank you, 3K. You are a she. Thank you. And I am a she, her pronoun myself. So, okay. So what else do I need to tell you about patterns? I think that the best thing for your patterns is to jump right in. So go to a thrift store, or borrow from somebody that you know, and just take that pattern and trace it out on tissue paper. And then make yourself something super easy. One thing would be if you find a pair of easy pants with an elastic band waist, like a pajama pant. You can watch my video, and my video will walk you right through making those pajama pants. The pajama shorts, that video, those are beginner videos that are meant for people who've never sewn before. Because my students, they have never sewn before, and those are the first projects that they do, are the pajama shorts. The pajama pants with pockets, of course, would be like a couple projects down the road, but the pajama shorts is project number 1. And then you walk away with something that you made, and it's great. One thing that I think everybody should know if you are a newbie, and even if you're not a newbie and you've been around the block a few times, it's important to make something and then make it again right away. So many people are like, why do you do that? And I say, because everything I learned from making it the first time, I can then use again the second time and make it perfect. So often I will take like just fabric I don't really like, or fabric that's a lot cheaper, and I'll make something that I've never made before out of that, and that's my tester. And then I'll immediately make it out of the more expensive fabric, because I find if I cut into a very expensive fabric right away and I haven't made that thing I want to make, I'm very nervous, even though I've been doing this for a long time. So anyway, we only have about a minute and a half left, so we're just gonna wrap this up. But I wanted to say thank you so much. There have been about 21 to 25 of you on here the whole time, so I'm sure there's been people coming and going, but I want to really say thank you so much. This is, as you know, this is sometimes my students' journey, sometimes my children's journey, it's sometimes my sewing journey, but it's always your sewing journey. So thanks for coming today and asking these questions. And if you have any questions later, you can add them to the comments, and then I'll answer them next week. And we'll do, or not next week, sorry, next month. And we'll do this again. So this is gonna be the last Saturday of every single month. And we're gonna do it at 8 Eastern time. And I really hope that you continue to watch the videos, continue to give it a like, share it with people that you know who sew, or people who don't sew who might want to learn how to sew. It's a great skill. Thank you very much. Thanks, Nicole. I like that you enjoy them. That's great. Thanks, Mary. Appreciate you staying around. Bye, everybody. Have a great day. Great night. Or day, depending where you are in the world. Anyway. Ciao, everybody. Have a great one. Turn it off. Thanks, Angela.